Let me share with you 3 of my best all-time driver videos. You know, driving doesn't have to be that complicated, especially when you get some of the secrets that I'm going to share with you here. Let's go and get started. All right, the takeaway. If we can get the swing started correctly, it just makes it a lot easier to load up the body, get the club working back in the proper manner, and just makes it easier to hit the ball better. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over a foolproof 4-step process. But the key to this, if you just watch this video and don't do anything, it's not going to help your golf swing. You'll have some great information, but you're not going to be hitting any better. I want you to grab a golf club right now. If you're in your living room, if you're at work, grab a broomstick, grab whatever you have to make a golf swing. You don't even have to hit a golf ball when you're doing this. Just go ahead and do the drills that I'm going to give you step by step, and it's really going to help you to get more power and more consistency. Let's jump in. Let's go and get started. All right, so let's jump right in here. The first piece is going to be the weight shift. And this actually starts before anything else happens. We have to get a little bit of a shift to our right side. And a lot of players will say, well, I don't really want to get a big weight shift to the right side. Won't that cause me to sway over to the right and then have to sway back to the left in the downswing? And we're not talking about major sway with upper body. If you look in my swing, you'll actually see I have a little trigger where I lift up my left toe, and that gets me to shift my weight into the inside of my right foot. But you'll notice my head isn't moving around all over the place. Even though I get a very early weight shift to the right, I'm not swaying to the right, swaying back to the left, that kind of thing. So here's the way I want you to do this. Number one, let's go ahead and just feel that weight shift into the inside of my right foot. It'll be a little bit more toward the ball of the foot or the toe. It won't be back toward the heel. And that's actually going to help me to rotate my hips and my shoulders here in a second. I'm going to get to that in the next piece. But piece number one, to start the swing, just a little bit of a weight shift, a pressure shift going into the inside ball of the right foot. And here's what I want you to do. Feel that shift, kind of stop there, and then I want you to go ahead, feel where the weight is in your foot, sense that, and then from there, finish the swing all the way back and through. That way you can feel how that would tie into a real swing. Now it's very important that we're only going to about right here when we check that weight shift. I don't want to be getting way back in my backswing. I want that weight shift to be very early. And actually, this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but as your hands get about chest high or parallel with the ground, your weight shift to the right is completely over. You're actually going to start shifting back to the left naturally. So it has to be very early if we want to have the perfect takeaway. What I'll see a lot of players do is they keep their weight on their left side. They don't get it shifting right. Now all of a sudden you have to pick it up with your hands and arms. The club sucks back to the inside. It does all kinds of crazy things. And then I'm late getting my weight to my right side, and the timing and tempo and everything is just thrown way off. We can get rid of all that by just simply putting a little pressure on the inside ball of our foot as soon as the swing starts, as soon as the takeaway starts. Actually, before the takeaway starts, to get it started, to get it moving. Again, I have a little trigger where I lift up my left toe. You don't have to do that. If you want to do that, that's completely fine. Number two, now we got to get rotating. This is a big piece of this. Once I get the weight on my right foot, what do I do with it to make sure my hips and my body rotate? On the backswing, my hips can only rotate if I'm pushing my hips with my legs and my feet. The muscles in my legs and my feet are what's moving my hips to a very large degree. So if I take this weight that I now have in my right foot, in the backswing, I'm actually pushing out this way. So you can imagine if I'm pushing down and out, that's pushing my hip back. So the harder and more I push this way, the more my body rotates that way. And that's very, very key. So piece number two is weight shift to the right. Now I feel like it's on the inside ball of my foot. And then I'm going to push this way to get my hips rotating. Now at the end of my takeaway, or when my club's about parallel with the ground, notice how my hips have rotated quite a bit. That's that pushing motion. So the more you push that way, the more your body loads up, the bigger the backswing, the more power you're going to have, the more effortless, the more free-flowing it's going to be. All kinds of good stuff is going to happen when I push with this foot that way to get my body rotating. That's piece number two. Another 20 reps. Same thing, we're going to build on piece number one. First, a little weight shift to the right, then pushing out to finish that takeaway and really get my hips turning. Piece number three is ensuring that my shoulders are turning. This is the last key checkpoint here to really getting that great takeaway. I don't want to feel like my hands and arms are doing much with this. The biggest mistake I see, again, is the lower body's turned off, my shoulders and my body's turned off to where all the big muscles in my body aren't doing anything, and then I'm picking up this club with my hands and arms. Maybe I'm sucking it to the inside, maybe I'm picking it straight up like this. I could really move this club in a lot of bad positions. What I want to do is I want to feel like the butt end of this club is toward the center of my body, and I'm going to rotate so that when my hands are about waist high or stomach high, I want to feel like my chest is rotated 90 degrees. So if I feel like I'm picking this club up with my hands and arms, watch the butt end of this club. Now all of a sudden it's way out here. I've sucked the club way inside. My body hasn't rotated at all. And now the club's already pointing way out to the right. If I feel like the club is pointing toward my body and my body's really rotating, as I push into the ground to rotate my body, now all of a sudden I'm really loaded up. I want you to feel like when your hands are midsection high, your shoulders have already turned 90 degrees. Now it's not exactly gonna happen. My shoulders won't quite be 90 degrees, but that's the feeling I wanna have there. Let's go ahead and do another 20 reps. Piece number 1, little weight shift to the right. Piece number 2, while I'm turning my shoulders, I'm pushing into the ground to get my hips to rotate. So really loading up. That's gonna be my key checkpoint there for the third piece, which is when the hands are waist high, my shoulders have already turned what feels like 90 degrees. Another 20 reps of that. So here, checking it, and then I'm going all the way back, all the way through to make that into a full swing. Now finally, we're ready to complete the backswing and really hammer the ball. Once I'm this loaded up in just my takeaway, now I'm gonna have tons of power. All you need to feel from there is just like you're lifting the arms straight up. You're gonna feel like you're lifting them straight over your right shoulder like that. In reality, because you're swinging around in a circle, it's gonna naturally get over the right shoulder. It's gonna get plenty of a round motion. I see a lot of players with their hands way too low, too tight to their body. They're losing a lot of distance doing that. I want you to feel like you're reaching to the sky to complete that backswing. And if I grab a golf ball here, let me go ahead and hit another one. I'm gonna feel like I put those 4 pieces together. So it's a weight shift, a turn, and a lift. That's what's gonna allow me to load up and get tons of power. Let's try it out. All right, that perfect takeaway. What do we really want to accomplish in a perfect takeaway? Well, ideally, we would like to have our body and our chest rotating quite a bit early in the backswing. That's going to help us to make a bigger shoulder turn and get more power. I'd also like to have the club working fairly well on plane. So as I'm coming back, I want this club to be working up plane. That way it makes it easier to be consistent in the golf swing. If I drag the club way back inside, my tendency is going to be to reroute it over the top. Or if I pick the club way back out of here, I may loop it back to inside too much. So if we can get the good shoulder turn, we can get the club working back on plane, that's gonna be a pretty daggone good takeaway. If we can add in a third piece there as a result of this to get a nice weight shift to the right, things are really gonna get easy in the golf swing. So I'm gonna break this down for you. I have a very unique drill. We're gonna go through 20 reps at a time. If you follow along with this, it's going to help you to make your takeaways so much more consistent and become automatic. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's jump right into these drills and start ingraining this. The great thing is you can do these right from your living room. You don't have to go to the driving range, and you can start building a better swing. So first, let's get the feel of the proper rotation of my chest. So if I grab my ribs to the side here, as I finish my takeaway, I'd like to have my ribs rotated about 45 degrees. So again, it's that early move off the ball, that early rotation of the upper body. That's going to help us to get what we call the power turn as we complete the backswing and we make this good full shoulder turn all the way to the top. That starts right from the beginning, the first move off the ball. So feel your ribs rotating here until you're about 45 degrees rotated. You'll notice when you do this, you get a little slight weight shift, a little pressure on the inside of your foot as you're doing this. And you'll feel like your arms, definitely my arms aren't doing anything here, but even in the golf swing, I'm feeling like my arms aren't doing much at all in this very early part. Now as I add a club to this, again, I'm just rotating my rib cage and I let my arms swing back as they will. I'm not really doing much with them. My right arm is staying fairly loose and relaxed and straight. My wrists are staying fairly relaxed. Not much going on there. And if I just rotate my ribs, that's going to kind of bring this club back in this position. So I'm just letting that club kind of flow back into that position. I'm not trying to manipulate anything. I'm not trying to set anything into a perfect spot. I'm just letting the rotation of my body kind of guide that club into that general area. And when that happens, you'll see I'm pretty nice on plane here. I've had a good weight shift to the right. That's really good. Now let's do this the wrong way. Now we're not going to move our ribs at all. So instead of rotating, I'm just going to stay dead still And imagine me taking this club back with just my hands and arms and trying to put it in the right spot. I don't have the momentum of my body. My arms are kind of moving around in different spots every time. I really don't have the tempo and the smoothness to it that I would if I'm rotating my big pieces of my body. So when I just do my arms and don't rotate my ribs, now I'm having to place this club in the perfect spot every time. And it's really hard to do, and I just don't have a flow to this. So start to feel both of those, the correct way and the incorrect way. And then I want you to do 20 reps where you just focus on the rotation of your rib cage and let that club flow into place. Go ahead and do a good 20 reps from there. And then we'll move on to the next piece of the perfect takeaway. So now let's pick up where we left off and talk about those elbows again. Now if I do this properly, you'll notice that my elbows are staying in front of my body. So if I just have a club kind of under my elbows as I rotate back, my elbows are on this side of my body, and I'm just letting those be nice and soft. So again, if we look at the correct way to do this again, finishing here with my clubs parallel, look how my elbows are kind of in front of my body, they're not moving around a ton. That's the correct way of doing this. Let's do 20 reps doing it the correct way and the incorrect way. So the incorrect way would be, again, letting my elbows slide across my body. Now you'll see this right elbow has come way back. I'm doing a lot of wrist and arm action, and I can pull this club in a variety of different directions if I start engaging those elbows. So the correct way, again, elbows soft, keep them in front of your body, and just let the momentum of your body guide that club back versus trying to place that by moving your arms around in a variety of ways. So let's do 20 total reps. Feel the good way and the bad way first. Very little elbow movement versus a ton of elbow movement, so you can feel the difference. And then do 20 reps really feeling like, again, the momentum of your torso is guiding this club back. The weight shift to the right is guiding the club back. You're not trying to manipulate it very much. So we talked about the ribs, we talked about the elbows. Now let's move out farther down the chain to the hands. Now, what I most of the time see players doing when they're trying to get all these angles really nice and everything perfect and moving their body just right is they get really tight with the hands. And if you get tight with the hands, the tendency is to start to pick this club up with the hands, to jerk the backswing, and to really get your tempo all blown out of the water right from the start. What I want you to feel here is as I set up, I want my hands to be extremely soft on this club, like I'm barely holding on to it. And as I rotate my ribs and rotate my body to get this club moving back, my hands are going to remain really soft there. I'm going to go ahead and let the club flow into position. I'm not going to try to guide it into position. I'm just going to let it come back and through. Imagine it's kind of working up a plane of glass here, and I'm just letting it rock back and through on that plane of glass. If the club wants to open a little bit, as it naturally will, the club face wants to open, I'm going to let that happen. Again, I'm not trying to manipulate or guide the club. I'm letting it do what it wants to do. When I see players that are trying to control the club, they'll have the hands tight and they'll want to bring this club back just perfectly on this certain angle that they've pictured in their mind of being right. Don't let that happen. Go ahead and let the club do whatever it wants. There's players with the club a little shut that play fantastic golf that have won on the PGA Tour. There's players with the club a little bit open that have played fantastic golf and won on the PGA Tour. So don't worry about that. Get more of the rhythm and the feel of the swing so we have this nice takeaway. I want you to do 20 total reps, soft hands, let the club work back nice and easy, and it's going to take a lot of the stress out and getting you really loading up the body in the proper way. Now we've definitely heard this, and I bet you have too, that you should set the club early in the backswing. Well, I'm going to talk about how that can be one of the worst things you can do for your takeaway and kill a ton of distance. Now, let me go ahead and jump right in here. I'm going to hit some shots, and Q's going to read them off Flight Scope. And we're going to see with this first swing, I'm going to really try to set this club early, getting that wrist hinge. And what that is radial deviation, meaning that your wrist is going up like this. And I'm really feeling like I'm cocking or setting the wrist very early in my backswing to where almost when my hands are parallel with my belt, I've already got this 90-degree angle. A lot of people will say that this is a good thing to do, but a lot of times what I see is it cuts off the power from your swing. So let me try to do this and we'll see what happens. Yeah, so it felt really weird. I blocked that one way to the right just because it's a different type of swing, but mostly it felt like to me, I'm picking that up with my hands and arms and not really getting my body into the shot. Also, as soon as I max out my wrist angle, I feel like I'm going to start casting a little bit in the downswing. Naturally, I want to start to cast in the downswing because once my wrists get fully set, it's like they automatically just want to unset. There's something to that that's actually called the stretch shortening cycle, meaning whenever you fully stretch out a muscle, it immediately wants to fire. It's very difficult to keep it from firing. So, Quentin, what do we see there on swing speed and total distance, and then we'll go ahead and do the one the right takeaway and see if it's a little bit better.
So club head speed, we were at 108.5, and then total distance was 266.2.
Okay, so not too bad. I hit it solid, hit it on the middle of the face, so I still got 260. 108 isn't terrible swing speed, but it's not nearly as good as I could if I got my whole body into it. And you'll find the same thing. Maybe when you set the wrist, you're only swinging 80 miles an hour or 90 or 100, maybe swinging 130, whatever it is. But when you set the wrist early, it's lower than whatever your potential could be. So the number itself doesn't matter, it's what my potential could be. Now here's the way we want to do this correctly. The first thing we want to do is make sure that our body rotates in the backswing. This is where we're getting a lot of the power to. The body creates the overall momentum of the swing. So the more I load my hips and my shoulders in the backswing, and I'm going to give you a little trick on how to do that here in a second, but the more I do that, the more effortless the power is. I don't feel like my hands and arms have to, take over this club and push really hard. If you feel like your hands and forearms, especially these muscles in the bottom of your forearm, are getting tight in your downswing, you're probably using a little bit too much hands in your golf swing, which means you're not using enough body rotation. So here's the trick to that. I'm going to feel like right away the first thing that moves back is my belt buckle. So if I'm paying attention to my belt buckle, I want my club to be facing this belt buckle. And the feeling that I want to have is as soon as I start back, I want my club and my belt buckle to be rotating together. A lot of times if I'm setting the wrist early again, what you'll see is now my club is already set a bunch, my club is pointing over here, and my belt buckle hasn't rotated at all. So I'm getting a good 4 or 5 feet my club head in the backswing with no rotation of the body whatsoever. I want to feel like these are linked together, and as soon as I start my backswing, both of those are going at the same time. So I want to have my club toward my belt buckle. Now as I go a little farther back from there, whenever I get my hands about shoulder or chest height, then I'm going to have that 90-degree angle that we had way down here in the first video. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few practice swings. Now this is an exaggeration. This isn't exactly going to happen. You don't have to look on camera and look to see if it's pointing exactly at your belt buckle. This is a feeling that you're going to have, and if you do this, it's going to help you to rotate more. It's not an exact measurement here, but I'm going to make a few swings feeling like my belt buckle and my grip rotate together in the backswing at least the first couple feet, and I'm not setting my wrist until up here. I'll do a few of those. Let me do one more here and then I'll hit a shot. So I feel like my body is much more engaged. My arms have more momentum to them. I don't feel like they're pushing and hitting across my body as much. So let's try another one out, and we got to see if my swing speed goes up with that kind of a feeling. There we go, that one's a little bit better. Definitely launched higher, just a little right center fairway. So we started out at what, Q, 108 swing speed? Was that one a little better?
Yeah, that one's quite a bit better. So 117.9 club head
speed. Up almost 9 miles an hour club head speed. 266 was the original or total distance. What was that one?
Yeah, I went up to 303.3.
303, so almost 40 yards farther. So it's not saying that that number is going to equate exactly to what your game is. It's saying that that increase is going to equate to what you're doing. So if you're setting the wrist early and your body's turned off, those hands and arms are working overtime, it's going to be really difficult to get the distance that you want to have in your golf swing. Now, one thing that I see over and over again for players that really pick that club up with their arms, that club just shoots back to the inside. No matter how much they feel like this club is pointing to their belt buckle, they need a little bit more, something a little bit more extreme. So Q, what do you find is your very best drill to help people that really struggle to get that club inside to get that fixed once and for all?
So I want you to do something for me real quick. I just want you to set up for me.
Okay.
And I just want you to do a swing where you do absolutely no lifting of the club. You just do the rotation.
So just back. Turn my body, no.
Yep. So that's what the golf swing looks like if you have absolutely no lift in the swing. You're just rotating only. And that's something that we all think about. We all think about that we really just want to rotate. And that what ends up happening all the time is that you'll just end up kind of bringing the club too far inside. You don't get enough lift out of the club. So now I just want you to do the swing where you don't rotate at all. It's just the lifting portion of the club. So yeah, so that's just the lifting part of the club. Now if you go back up to the top where you're at the top of the lift, now rotate your body. Now that's a great position to be in at the very top of the swing there. That's the position that we want to be in. So to get into this position where we're thinking about lifting and rotating, we want to feel like as we're rotating back, like Clay was talking about, getting that the butt end of the club pointing into the belly button, but also have the feeling that this club is tracing up your target line. So you have, you're pointing out into a target, there's a line going from your target back to the golf ball, and then it goes through the golf ball going all the way back. What I want you to feel like is that if you come back to address here, that this club is going straight up that target line as you are rotating up to the top.
So you can go really extreme, not so as to set the club very much, but just have it go up this way. And that's extreme, that's an exaggeration, right?
Exactly.
But that's what I need to feel. If I'm the guy that's bringing it in here and can't stop, I need to feel very exaggerated that way, right?
Now it's going to make it really easy to get into that lifted and rotated position at the top, and that's going to be a very, very powerful position to get a lot of distance.
Okay, so when I set up to the golf ball here, I'm going to do a few reps where I still feel like it's pointing toward my belly button as I rotate back, but then I'm going to imagine this club just lifting out, staying way outside my hands, lifting up the target line as I go to the top. So I'm not doing that by just picking it up like this. I'm keeping very little wrist hinge and letting the club go out. And again, that's not what's really happening. You're not gonna do this. For someone that's used to doing this, if you usually do this in your swing, you've been doing it for years, when you feel like you're here, you look on swing and look on video, it looks absolutely perfect. So let's go ahead and recap these drills. We've covered quite a bit of stuff. Let me go through exactly what to do, break it down step by step, and I'll hit a couple more shots here. So number one, I gotta make sure that I don't do everything with just the hands and arms early in the backswing. So if I'm gonna pick up that club with all my wrist, I'm not gonna rotate the body. I'm gonna be all arms in the swing, and my distance is gonna plummet. I'm really not gonna have the swing speed that I want. So here, I wanna make sure butt end of the club is pointing toward my belly button. I would do a good 20 shots of this. So 20 swings where I do a practice swing, or it's one each. So I do a practice swing, very little wrist set, go to the top, all the way back and through. I get the feeling fresh in my mind, and then I go ahead and I set up to a golf ball and I give it a rip. There we go, hit that one pretty good. Then I'm gonna alternate. One practice swing, one shot, one practice swing, one shot. Focusing on early rotation of the body. 20 total shots with that next time you go to the range. Then the next 20 swings, and this can be with anything. This can be with a pitching wedge, all the way to a driver. I hit the driver because people like to see me hit the driver. It's a little more fun than hitting pitching wedges. But you can do this with any club. You can even do it in your living room if you want to get a head start on this. Then the next 20 swings, I'm gonna go ahead, and the feeling is gonna be same thing I just had, but that club is gonna trace out here, way outside my hands. It's gonna feel like it kind of loops up this way. Even when I feel that in my own swing, it's not gonna be nearly as exaggerated as what that practice swing was. So you can see that didn't look that crazy, and the ball went pretty good. So 20 swings, one practice swing, one shot, one practice swing, one shot. It's one bucket of balls, and you can finally get rid of that inside takeaway and add some serious power. Now in this video, we talked about how to use that belt buckle to get that bigger turn and more power. But you need to add something to that, the shoulders. Once I add the hips and the shoulders together, I'm gonna have huge power. That's what I call the power turn, and I have an awesome preview I'm gonna play here in a second. Just click the card that pops up on your screen, or if you don't see that card, click the link in the description below. But with the correct technique, we can all hit it with really good distance without a lot of muscular effort. And it all starts out, the very first thing you have to do is get a good powerful turn to load up the body. And it's not only in golf, but in all sports we have to rotate the body. At least 90 degrees with the shoulders as you swing to the top. Preferably, we can go even a little bit past 90 to really get loaded up. That's gonna allow us to have a lot of power. So we don't just have to look at golf for this. Let's actually look at other sports. They're rotating their body, then they're coming forward. So we have to get that load. We have to get this big shoulder turn to be able to create power in the golf swing. So in this series of videos, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that. That's one of the first keys to getting power, and we're all gonna get at least a 90-degree turn, if not more than that. I think you'll be surprised at what you can do. So let's go ahead and get started with the next series of videos, and I'm gonna show you how to get this big, powerful turn. All right guys, so before we go, let's take a look at this in action with some of the top pros. Now here we're looking at Adam Scott, and you're gonna see as he rotates to the top, good full shoulder turn. This is pretty typical of what I see with the top pros, a little past 90. Those guys are working on their flexibility, so sometimes they can get to 100 or even 110 degrees.